This video is now in session, and today we're gonna unveil the governor's prediction for 2022. So this is what we think will happen in the 2022 election. Here you see Republicans win 28 governorships, while the Democrats hold on to 21 or actually 20 and gain Maryland as well as Massachusetts. So how did we get to this map? Originally we thought that Democrats might actually get a even majority with the Republican parties by sharing 25 governors races or 25 governors mansions with the Republican Party. But ever since August of this year, there has been a shift for the Republicans with the economy, with issues like inflation as well as crime that have driven the debate. In southern states, you have seen increase in talk about immigration and as well as the border. And here is basically the progression. From October 14th, there was a steady shift towards the Conservative Party, towards the Republicans in western states. In Oregon, where crime became a major issue. In Nevada, where cost of living has been a big talking point for the Republican Party, and in Arizona, where there has been increased talk about the border wall as well as immigration and inflation. So you can see here how, over in the span of just 10 days, it's been a steady shift for the Republican Party. Nevada going from tilt red to lean red, and then Wisconsin going from tilt blue to tilt red. And now today we have the governor's races as this, where Oregon, Democrats have luckily salvaged this state by spending more money in Oregon by focusing issues like crime with Tina Kotek, and then honestly just Betsy Johnson's independent bid failing to gain any traction because Johnson hasn't really been able to do much with her campaign. A lot of people who did support her, like Phil Knight, who is Nike's or the founder of Nike, they've left Johnson for either Kotek and Drazen, and many of those Johnson supporters were Democrats. So because they left Johnson, and because of their Democratic affiliation, they went back to Kotek, and that's why you see for a lot of these polls here, Kotek is back up, when in the beginning you saw Drazen up in those polls. So we think that Kotek's message and her appeal for crime or against crime will just about equal enough votes to be able to win in that race. And then in Wisconsin, the polls are kind of close between the two candidates, but ultimately that kind of closeness is what we should probably be thinking more about, because if you look at the polls in Wisconsin in the 2020 election, you'll see that a lot of those polls were heavily in favor of Biden, but it turned out to be a tilt win for Biden. But here you basically see a half and half split between even polls and polls that tilt towards Michaels. And because Wisconsin has that historic polling era that has been existent for several years now, we think that Michaels will be able to eke out a win, even though 538 says at this moment that Tony Evers is ahead. So that explains basically those states. You also have Kansas. Kansas was supposed to be a lot more competitive than it should have, or than it actually did turn out to be, and that's primarily because Kelly has just been a great candidate all around for the Democratic Party by focusing less on issues like abortion and focusing more on the economy, with that issue being the single greatest issue in her campaign throughout her campaign. That consistency has led her to keep a lot of votes that would have otherwise went for the Republican Party during this fall of trending back towards red. So Here you can see Kelly is up in these polls in Emerson College, going from +2 to +5, which is pretty odd for a Democrat, considering that in the span of that month, September to October, it was a big shift for the Republican Party. But that just shows Kelly's messaging was right, and ultimately that race is turning out to be a little bit more anticlimactic. But something that's not anticlimactic is New York. New York, we really did not think that this race was going to be this competitive, this close to the election, but we were kind of stricken by the parallelisms between New York and New Jersey's 2021 gubernatorial election. In both races, you had high attention towards crime as well as cost of living, and because of those two factors, a lot of people were simply tired of the Democratic Party for enacting so many taxes on them, to the point where they decided to vote for the Republicans for the first time in several years. In New York, there hasn't been a Republican governor since the 2000s, so this is a pretty major moment. I don't think that Lee Zeldin will be able to pull out, just because Hochul is finally realizing, and the Democrats are finally realizing that New York is pretty competitive, or too competitive than it should have been. But now they're investing resources, and ultimately I think that the Democrats will end up fine, at least in the governor's race. But this will definitely have an effect on down ballot races, and that's something that we really have to pay attention to in these 2022 elections. Down ballot races that include the Senate and the House, because what happens in the governor's races, since they're at the top of the ticket, a lot of people these days vote, I guess, clean. They just vote clean down ballot, the same candidate, the same party as they voted for in the governor's races. So in states like Pennsylvania, that will be important, because you have an ultra competitive Senate race that is happening, one that we have a very hard time judging. But the fact that Josh Shapiro is up in Pennsylvania because his opponent Doug Mastriano is a more extremist conservative, that certainly helps John Fetterman, and in fact is probably one of the only reasons why John Fetterman is still in contention. It's because of those down ballot votes from Josh Shapiro. So that's basically the map that we have. In terms of any surpriser races, I don't know, maybe Oklahoma could be a surpriser, especially considering that in 2018 we didn't think that Kendra Horn was going to win in Oklahoma's 5th district as a Democrat, but she ultimately turned out to win with polls that lean towards the Republican Party too much. So maybe that could happen in Oklahoma again this year, but I don't really think so, considering that this A-rated pollster by Emerson College has stood the incumbent governor up by 10 points. So that kind of margin of error would be incredibly high, but you don't know. It's all of these kinds of races in Oklahoma, New Mexico, Maine, they can be sleeper races just because of silent revolts that happened similarly in the 2021 New Jersey gubernatorial election. So that's the forecast, or I guess that's the prediction that we have right now. Pennsylvania is going towards the Democrats, so is New York, Kansas, New Mexico, Oregon, and Maine, and then Nevada and Arizona. Both of these states hold on, or at least for Nevada, at least for Arizona. Nevada, it's a flip for the Republicans, but yeah, Republicans do make some progress in key places, and then Democrats are able to flip states in Democratic strongholds. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and we have also a Senate and House prediction video all into one video that will give you a concise overview of what we think in those races. So yeah, that I hope you enjoyed that video as well, and that's yeah, happy 2022 election.